Hi, this is commentary for Skator Gator 3D. I'm doing this all in one take, but I am doing it in post because I wanted to just focus on the gameplay. I'll practice it, don't worry about it too much. Skator Gator 3D is an indie platformer where you play as Grangerman, and Grangerman has recently gotten his Deed-to-his swamp stolen. You'll see that as we load into the first level here, time is when we start the first level. We use in-game time for this, so anything at the end of the stages, stuff like that, including pauses and restarts. You'll see right away we grind on our skateboard. We can't be a Skator Gator without our skateboard, right? The game is broken into these kind of two chunks, and you'll see us entering the second one. The first one is, of course, the grinding on rails. Whenever we touch those big red rails, they're, I think, oil pipes, but whenever we touch those, we'll go into our skateboard, and that is kind of on rails. We can dash on the rails, but otherwise we're kind of limited in what we can do. But whenever we're off of them, we're put into our 3D platformer state where we can hop around, dash, we get full movement freedom. We can't go as fast because our skateboard is limited to us, but we do get to do some cool tricks. Some tricks that you'll see as we load into the second level here. You'll see one thing we do on the rails there is just mashing dash. We just want to make sure we get that dash speed as much as possible. Tricky little jump off that box there. There's a harder version of it, but I decided to play it safe. And then bouncing off these mushrooms, you'll see one major tech that we use throughout this game, and that is teledashing. I kind of messed up here, but turn around, do it again, and you'll see when we pause on those bright orange dash panels there, when we unpause, we manage to go flying. It basically looks like a teleport. That's where the name Teledash comes from. And we'll be using those throughout the game to fling ourselves, do some pretty big skips, but otherwise it's just going to skip basic platforming. Unfortunately, you can't do them while on the skateboard here. Pausing doesn't do much, but that kind of limits it a little bit, but you can do it on foot here. We're going to try... Okay. Right, I missed that one. That one's probably the hardest one. It's hard to do when it's on the little pillar there, but it's still worth retrying because it puts you about here at the end of those bounce pads. On rails, you can see some obstacles and stuff. We have those little bumpers that bump us left to right. Most of the time, they're not used for bad. We have the little mushrooms. The mushrooms there will bounce you back, and we don't want to hit those, obviously, going forward. Well, going forward is, of course, the goal. You see the grass here. The grass will just slow you down, put you kind of at a crawl. And otherwise, sometimes enemies might show up, stuff like that. While I was explaining all that, we entered into our first boss fight. The boss fights here are mostly auto-scrollers with one big exception towards the end of the run. I think it's literally the last stage, but otherwise, these are great time for donations later on, because otherwise, we have more stuff to explain. This game goes pretty fast. We're going to load it into Sunset Swamps. One thing that we tend to abuse in this game is the fact that we use in-game timing, because the in-game timer does not start until you leave a certain radius from the starting line. So we can use that to our advantage, get a little bit of setup. Of course, going fast in RTA is still pretty important. If you spend too long stalling, if you spend over a minute without the timer running, you'll get that added onto your time, but otherwise, if you just move around, you should be fine. Gives us a little bit of a few cool strats we can do. But just like that, Sunset Swamps is over. Nothing huge in this stage, just a few little shortcuts. There is one hard strat that you can do, but we don't do it. Small little cutscene there. I'll probably show that in the actual run, but we meet our friend, the eel. The eel here, we're going to ignore him for a little bit, but the eel is our first kind of power-up. You can see as we pick him up on the rails here, he is this big old force field, and whenever the bee dashes into us, as long as we're dashing, the eel will actually defeat them. Here, messed up that teledash. You have to jump at the end. You kind of have to use your coyote time. This game has a pretty lenient coyote timing, so that's pretty nice. But the eels will be used throughout this run to destroy enemies. We don't use them much until the end, but we'll explain that when we get there. Otherwise, we can finish out this level. This level is pretty tricky, but that's mostly because of the ending here. You'll see the 3 flamethrowers, but we can fit in probably a quick donation as we load into the next stage. Alright, and we're back into Twilight Town. Twilight Town has a really big skip coming up. Right after this little town segment, we'll come over to this corner, and if you look in the distance there in the water, you can actually see a tire. And that tire, thankfully, lets us get to the ending rails. This is literally the last section of the level. This is one of the shortest levels because of that. It's honestly really cool. I really like that shortcut. It's pretty clearly intended by the devs, because there are staff times in this game, kind of like, kind of dev times, and the one on that stage is, like, 34 seconds or something? I don't know. It's something ridiculously short. Here in Bee-ware of Foes, you can see kind of how we use the eel to take care of all of these enemies. And just like the last stage, we're going to do something a little similar here, except bounce off 2 tires onto this section. We're going to do a teledash here, and that puts us at the end of the rail segment there. But otherwise, one thing that we haven't explained yet is that there's a technique in this game called a super jump. Super jumping is a dash followed immediately by a jump, and you can tell when we hit a super jump when we're on the ground and some stars come out the back. It's not the sparkles that come off of the skin that I am using. I'll point out when we see it, but you should see it at the start of this next stage. Oh, never mind. Next stage is a boss fight, right? So you'll see it in the stage after this, but that resets our air dash. Also, nice death. Lol. The super jump resets our air dash, so we can use that to get a bunch of speed starting out, and then jump to something further in the stage using that extra air dash that we have to our advantage. And that makes some shortcuts significantly easier, but also just flat out possible. Otherwise, if we didn't have the super jump, a lot of the platforming would be a little bit tighter, a little bit more, how to put, mean. It'd be a little bit meaner. Otherwise, we can finish out this this stage. One thing I want to mention here is that we'll damage boost through Traitor Gator's little fireballs here to keep up our speed, but that does put us at 1 health, so it's kind of risky, but it is a nice little time save. Otherwise, we can throw to more donations as we load into the next few stages. Also, I'd probably show off this next cutscene here because it's cute and the cutscenes are cute. Alright, loading into Midnight Miner, it is now night. We got the smooth jazz vibes in the soundtrack. Big shoutouts to the composer of this soundtrack. Oh wow, that's a really bad death. Big shout out to the composer of the soundtrack, Jackie Eats, I believe is his name. And I need to correct that. But this stage puts us into the night levels where we meet the dragon wings. I'm not exactly sure where these come from. My headcanon is that they're robotic, but whenever we pick one up, you can see at the bottom of the screen, we have a counter, and we can stack these wings as long as we pick up a new one. You can see the wings will kind of fade out to black in the game world, and that indicates that we've already collected that one. Wings can be kind of finicky. You saw there that the game kind of just took my wing from me. That can happen because of coyote time. The game doesn't make a distinction between coyote time and you using the wing, so if you use your coyote time, you'll end up using the wing. It's kind of frustrating, but most of the time you have to just play around it, so it's really kind of a skill issue that I used wings when I wasn't meaning to. Another thing that wings are good for is getting through rail gaps, because you'll see there, we have the gap in the rails there, where if we didn't have the wing, we would just fall to our death. So they're very convenient. And here we're going to use some super jumps to keep a few wings on our person. That will let us do a very hard shortcut here after this mushroom that bounces us into the future. And then right over the middle section of the stage, You can't do teledashes off of any of those dash panels. They don't put you in a very good spot, so it's just faster to go through the stage like normal. And as we enter into the pipe, we've entered into our second to last stage. That's right, just like that, this run is nearly over. This is the factory, and this part of the game is very difficult because we have a really big skip coming up that I'm not sure if the devs have intended it, but the staff time is like 1 minute and 3 seconds. We won't beat that in this run. It's basically you have to try real hard. It's very difficult to beat. I don't know what shortcut the staff uses, but this is what I do. I do a teledash here, and I land on these little barrels. Afterwards, we do a super jump up to here. We do a super jump, which will give us just enough height to land onto this platform. And this platform is the final stretch. After these rails, we have some more platforming to go, and then we end the stage. So bounce off the mushroom, grab the eel, and just like that, we are on the last stretch. Before we get into the final fight, where there's going to be a bit to explain, we'll throw to more donations just at the end here. Just like that, bye Gator. I love the ending of that stage, it's so cute. But with that, we have entered into the final stage, Traitor Gator himself. You see his health bar at the bottom there. This is the one boss fight level that is not an auto-scroller, and there is a very fast quick kill that I will try to do in this run. You'll see whenever we get the eel, we will swap rails, and that will shoot out a little projectile which will take 1 bit of his health. And if we hit him enough, he will go down to just 1 HP. Oh, and just like that, we gotta redo the fight. That's kind of the danger of this fight, is that going for the 1 cycle is really precise. You have to be very on point with your, or I guess it'd be a 2 cycle. The reason... You have to be very precise with your shots with the eel, and the reason for that is that the eel is actually on a timer. And with the stage layout here, we have to hit him very precisely. You'll see me not dash there at all. That's by intention, and that's the only way you can hit the quick kill. But with that, time will be whenever we pick up the detour swamp again. Just like that. And there's an ending cutscene that'll probably show off while giving some small shoutouts. You know how it is. This cutscene is very cute. But, for all intensive purposes, that is Skator Gator 3D. There are a lot of cool tricks, a lot of cool stage designs here. I am a big fan of this game. It's a cute little bite-sized platformer, and I love those. And it's also an alligator as a protagonist, so cool and epic. Also, explosion, oh my god.